Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum Assalam.
Are you ready for the story of Prophet today?
Yes, Baba, I am.
Inshallah, I will tell you the story of Prophet Isa alayhi salam and the food spread from the sky. Bismillah. Prophet Isa alayhi salam and the food spread from the sky. Prophet Isa alayhi salam had been following Torah until he received the revelation from God. God gave him a new book, the Injil. The Prophet read this book, which had been gifted to him. When the Prophet announced that he had received a new book from God, the people who still followed Torah did not like this. Like all other prophets, Prophet Isa alayhi salam too performed many miracles. Allah sent all the prophets with miracles as a proof to their prophethood. This way the people could witness, know about them and believe in their prophethood. Many of the miracles that Prophet Isa alayhi salam performed were by curing illness. The people during this time were quite knowledgeable in the field of medicine. And when the Prophet cured the sick who were declared untreatable, it sent out a strong message. Once he put his hand on the face of a man who was born blind. The Prophet cured this man, and he could see for the first time. One day, when the Prophet was walking to the town, he saw a procession taking place. The Prophet approached them and asked them what was going on. "This man is dead, and we are taking him to the burial site," replied one of them. The Prophet asked them to stop and prayed to Allah. It was a miracle. The dead man stood up and he was alive. Allah brought this person back to life just like that. One day, Prophet Isa asked his supporters to fast for 30 days. His followers agreed and they started fasting. Upon completion of 30 days fasting period, the followers went along with Isa alayhi salam to the desert. It was normal for thousands of people to follow the Prophet wherever he went. Many of the followers were sick people who hoped to be cured by the Prophet. A group of people who were against the teachings of the Prophet also followed the Prophet wherever he went. They followed him so that they could mock at the Prophet and belittle him at every opportunity they got. After the 30-day fasting period, the disbelievers asked the Prophet if they could have a spread of food from the sky. They asked for this as a confirmation that the God had accepted their fast. They wanted to eat something special on the day they broke their fast. They also wanted the spread to be enough for all of them. There were thousands of people present there, and the disbelievers knew that the Prophet could never deliver what they had asked for. Prophet Isa alayhi salam agreed to their request, and he went to a silent spot and prayed to Allah. It was a miracle. God accepted the prayers of Prophet. A huge spread of food descended right from the sky. There was one cloud below the spread and one cloud above it, and it was surrounded by the angels. Slowly, it came down to the ground, and as it descended, the Prophet remained immersed in his prayers. The spread of food landed near the Prophet. There was a white cloth covering the spread. The Prophet took this off, saying, "In the name of Allah, the best sustainer." When the cloth covering the spread was taken off, the people gathered around looked at in wonder. There were 7 big fish, 7 loaves of bread, vinegar, salt, honey, and many other fruits as well. The spread had a wonderful smell. The people had never smelled anything so wonderful before. The Prophet then asked the disbelievers to eat from the spread. But they replied, "We will not eat from it until we see you eating from the spread." "You are the ones who asked for it," the Prophet asked them. "Then you should eat the food first." But the disbelievers still refused. The Prophet then asked the poor, the sick, the handicapped, and the blind to eat from the spread. There were more than 1,000 of them, and all of them ate from the spread. Then another miracle took place. All the sick people who ate from the spread got cured. Same was the case with the handicapped, the blind, and all others. It was a miracle. The disbelievers were now sad because they had refused to eat from the spread when they were invited first. The news of the feast traveled fast, and it reached the city. Thousands of people traveled to witness this divine feast. The number of people who wanted to take part in the feast had now become so huge. The Prophet then asked them to take turns to have this feast. Days passed. Each person from the very first to the very last ate until they were full. It is said that almost 7,000 people ate from the feast each day. After 40 days, God asked the Prophet to allow only the poor to eat from the feast and not the rich. The Prophet warned the people to be honest and asked the rich to stay away from the feast. He also asked the poor not to take away the food to save for the next day. However, the people didn't listen to the Prophet. The rich people ate from the spread, pretending to be poor. And many poor people took the food with them, disobeying the Prophet's orders. As a result, the spread of food was lifted back into the sky where it came from. The people talked about this miracle for many years, and they were convinced about Allah's miracles. By the time Prophet Isa (AS) was 30 years old, the priests had become very angry at him, and they made plans to kill the Prophet. One night, the Prophet was sitting along with his 12 companions in his house. He said, "One among you is going to betray me." It was true, and it was none other than Judas. Judas had gone to meet the head priest that day. "What will you give me if I deliver Isa to you?" Judas asked the priest. "We will give you 30 pieces of shekels," the head priest replied. Judas was ashamed of himself, and he left the room. The Prophet then asked any one of his companions was ready to take his place, as the soldiers were coming to arrest him. "Who among you will be ready to take my place?" asked the Prophet. "You will be my companion in paradise." A young man stood up and readily agreed. When the soldiers arrived to arrest the Prophet, they took the young man instead and crucified him. Before the young man was crucified, Prophet Isa (AS) was raised from a window in the corner of the house. Prophet Isa (AS) is now alive in the second heaven. He shall descend before the day of judgment.
MashaAllah, that was such a wonderful story.
I'm glad you liked it, my son. Now, are you ready for the questions?
Yes, Baba, I am.
All right. Now, tell me the name of the new book that God gave the Prophet.
It was Angel.
Excellent, Amir. That is the right answer. Can you tell me some of the miracles that the Prophet performed?
The Prophet cured a leper, he gave sight to a blind man, then he raised a man back from the dead, and yes, he brought a food spread from the sky.
MashaAllah, that's amazing. That's all for today. Inshallah, I will tell you the story of Prophet Muhammad tomorrow.
That was wonderful. I'm so excited.
Good night, my son.
Good night, Baba.